Hey, Patrick, how you doing, bud?
Not too bad at all, buddy. So I brought you a bit of an interesting interview from a Labour County Councillor from Dublin.
It's Darragh Moriarty, what you were telling me.
Yes. Yeah, I just wanted to see your take from American point of view on what he's saying about my country at the moment.
All right, well, let's see what the fella has to say.
I suppose I don't want to give off the impression to anybody listening that, racism is new in Ireland. Like, racism has probably always been there. There's always been an element of society that's comfortable sort of talking in those terms about other people coming in. And they've always been there, probably.
So is he confusing racism with illegal immigration? Is that what I'm understanding, like right off the bat?
I think everything to disagree with the immigration policies all being classed as racism in a nice blank canvas. That's just what they're coming up with.
Right.
So if you disagree with the immigration policy as it stands right now, you're a racist. I think that's what he's trying to say.
So if the state says that multiculturalism is good and those who come to the country and fail to assimilate are still good in a general sense, that's a bad thing to bring up, that maybe it's not the healthiest thing for your society?
Yeah, you're a racist.
Oh, no, not me. I'm not. No.
Yeah, well, if you say anything like that, you're a racist. If you disagree with anything our government does around us whatsoever, you're far right racists. That's it.
Right. So the extraction of resources, the extra and overutilization of your medical establishment, housing issues, these kinds of things that come from those who fail to assimilate and continue to extract resources. If I disagree with that, or if I have that opinion, then in your country, I would be considered racist.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. You'd be a racist.
Oh, golly. Well, lucky you've got freedom of expression.
Yes. Lots of freedom.
Lots of freedom. All right. I cut the guy off really quick. Let's let him cook a little bit more.
But I definitely feel there's a higher level of comfort now for people to start having those conversations. And that didn't used to be there. I'm very fortunate to have gone to a school that was multi-ethnic, multiracial, right the way up from primary school to secondary school. I would have shared classrooms with people from all over Europe, from all over the world. And, my knowledge of the world is richer and more enhanced because of that. And there's definitely, if you look at schools now, you look at sports teams, you look at, our football team, you look at our Olympic team, there's people from all backgrounds, and that's to be celebrated and nurtured and supported.
Well, I get them coming from lots of varied backgrounds is awesome. That's a good thing. But if they're not from Ireland, are they really then representing Ireland?
There's a point to be made that what happened to the young Irish athletes who have lived for generations in Ireland? Are they being shoved aside so these Irish teams can look better on the world stage, saying, "Oh, look at us. We're not all, we're embracing all this new idea." I understand his point of, like, he grew up in Dublin. He grew up in a certain part of Dublin where there was multiculturalism around Dublin. Where I grew up more down the south, down County Cork, where it wasn't the norm. And I'm not saying that to be, classed as racist or whatsoever, but he has to realize the scenario of, as you were saying, people are failing to assimilate. There's more and more of them. If you go to any council estate in Ireland, just walk into any council estate in Ireland and try to spot the Irish person. Any new council estate.
Well, I don't think it's an appropriate justification to say that because we have 4 really good footballers and a hurler from India, we're better. We're better as a people. Yeah. And that's a very, very small percentage of those who have come in.
Yes. Tiny. Absolutely tiny. As I say, look at our council estates. If you go to any new council estate and you knock on 10 doors, I guarantee you 1 or 2 of them would be Irish. The rest would not. That's just And are these the people who are supposed to be a shining example of multiculturalism and how they work hard and they're a great benefit to our country?
So define for the people what council housing is, because they might not know.
You have something similar to social housing in California, do we?
Well, the entire United States has a thing called Section 8, which is managed by the counties, and it's
Yes.
federal monies.
Oh, yeah, same here. We have county councils build social housing projects, flats, houses, different types of units. And for the most part, it's for people who, even if they're working, just cannot get into property ladder, or they fund hard times, or single mothers. There's a lot of different ways you can go on the council list.
So we're in an attempt to help you by reducing your rent costs so you can then become a better earner and a better citizen for our society. We're going to provide you
Yes.
housing.
Yes. The idea around social housing is to help those who can't help themselves. It's very, I know it's a very good project, but what I'm finding at the moment is I know people personally who've, between the jigs and the reels, marriage breaks down. There's a lot of different things happen in a person's life, and they find themselves on the county council list in emergency accommodation or so on. Different things can happen to people's lives. I'm not going to, we don't know what the future holds. What I'm finding is I know one particular guy, and he works hard. Marriage broke down late in life, and between the jigs and the reels, the money he got out of the house is not enough to buy another house, if that makes sense. And he ended up drinking heavily. And anyway, not getting too much into his personal life. He ended up on the county council list for the last 10 plus years. Over 10 years he's on the council list. Bearing in mind, for the vast majority of his life, he's paid into the system. And there's people who've come to Ireland in less than 12 months from other countries who are in county council houses.
So they're getting the resources or first crack at resources that Irish citizens are not. Now,
Yes.
understand that's anecdotally, that's one guy but if
One
that
guy
is
I
the
know,
case, then statistically by the
Honestly-
numbers, we should see it. And you're correct. I know the NGO you work for dealt with some of these housing issues and things like that, where you would end up in a situation where you would move someone who was of Irish descent out of council housing and then move in an immigrant family. And those that you moved out said, no, we don't have anywhere to go. We've just been removed from council housing. And then a week or two later, you're moving someone in who is a foreign national.
Yes. What I was doing, I was working for a charity who helped. Well, we supplied the van, if they needed to move furniture and whatever else. That's what, just to clarify. I wasn't showing the people out, just to clarify that. I was literally the man with the van, as they would say long ago, helping people move from me as part of this charitable organization. Because a lot of their stuff, if they were being forced out of their house, they would end up in emergency accommodation. So obviously they
Downsized.
couldn't take all their...
Right. They were
couldn't fit
downsized.
very much downsized. They could not move all their belongings into the storage unit that they could afford. So a lot of it was donated to my charity as well, which probably wasn't a favourite part of my job. And I felt sorry for a lot of them, because there was more than one particular scenario where a couple of weeks later I would get a phone call from another charity who would be tied into our charity to use our van or truck at the time. I was using a van to move another couple from emergency accommodation, who, by the way, were not from Ireland, to move their new furniture into their new house, where I was after moving a couple out of, who were from Ireland all their lives. Yeah. Yes, I have had experiences.
So, but not so much anecdotally for you, actually have experienced, which is anecdotal,
Yes.
I understand, but the percentage of time that happens seemed to be inordinate, right? Like a little bit more than maybe was a good and healthy thing for society.
Yes.
All right. So at this, foreign nationals are getting access to resources that our citizens are not, is functionally what's happening there. So
yeah, we all know it. Everyone knows it. Of course, as you pointed out, you're classified as a racist and you're far right, and how dare you say that? Because they bring so much to our country, apparently.
doesn't feel like it. Here we go.
You look at our hospitals; they wouldn't function without people from overseas. So hospitality, every sector, you know, and I think for people to kind of be more emboldened and brash about openly talking about Ireland for the Irish and all this type of nonsense.
The purpose of an immigration policy is for the advantage of that country.
Yes.
So when you say you need to be brash about saying something like this, you have missed the mark. Ireland
Yes.
should be for Ireland. France should be
Yes.
for France, Germany for Germany, the United States for
Yeah.
the United States.
Yes, but I would pick his point there. He's on about our health sector. Yes, for decades our health service was held up by Filipino and Indian doctors and Filipino nurses and so on. We all recognize this. I think what the point he's missing right now is the fact that we've hundreds of thousands of people who are not doctors, who are not nurses, and not engineers, and they're just wandering around our towns doing nothing and leeching off our system. That, I think, that's always been the problem with Labour, the Labour Party in Ireland. I think all of us of a certain generation, including me, remember the 2008 crash in our country when Labour were voted into the government at the time. And they weren't long selling us down the river that time. And it looks like they're on the same track to sell us out again for a different part, for a different paycheck.
To say Ireland is not for the Irish is more than just a misnomer. Your country should be for you. As a constituency of a governed people, you should be able to say, these are our needs, wants, and desires, and we need you as our politicians to adjudicate them appropriately and not, like you said, sell us down the river. The origin of that phrase is pretty interesting as well. I don't want to go into it, but look it up. It's pretty interesting. So if your country isn't doing things for your citizenry, then you don't necessarily have a country. If you open your borders, then the separation of ideas that borders represent loses all meaning. And then the Irish isn't for anyone because the Irish will cease to exist as a people if there's a lack of assimilation and forced multiculturalism is what's happening.
And by the way, these people are not assimilating. Let's call a spade a spade. They're not assimilating. They don't want to assimilate. We've seen it in Sweden, the UK, we've seen it all over the G20s. They're not assimilating. They're not doctors or engineers, or they're not going to benefit your society in any shape, form, or fashion.
Well, they're economic migrants that are leeching off the system. They're extracting resources that are taken from the taxpayers who reside there.
It's so important that progressives, you know, we in the Labour Party, you know, working with others of the left, hang together and really do fight that back. And just in the last 2 weeks, my own colleague in Galway, Helen Ogbu, became the mayor of Galway.
We covered that one as well.
Yes, remember the lady where her husband ended up getting shot twice?
Right. Her husband died twice, and she was here on a strange visa, and then she lived in council housing, and then she worked her way through the system in some fashion by not ever having produced financially and anything advantageous for Ireland.
No, bear in mind, she fled Nigeria in 2006 because it was dangerous, unsafe for herself and her kids and so on. You know, the big sob story. When her husband, by the way, did die in 2010, she flew back for months to Nigeria to sort things out and then fly back to Ireland. Because, you know, Nigeria was such an unsafe country. You flew out and you flew back. But this is who Labour is champion at the moment, by the way, in the mayor of Galway.
It's
lady
very
who has,
strange.
by the way, more holes in her story than, you know, Swiss cheese. But as I say, if you really want to go into it, there's plenty of other YouTubers who have really done a deep dive into that lady, who have actually really picked her story apart with facts and evidence.
Right. When we researched that, we probably had 30 or 40 hours of like footage and things to go through. It was insane. So many people had covered it. So as a footnote here, it's showing that somehow someone got elected who didn't contribute in any meaningful way to that society and is now wielding political control in a space where maybe that's not a thing they should be doing.
This is a person who, by the way, who has not paid an ounce of tax in Ireland once in her entire life. And Labour put her in as mayor. So yeah, that shows you what Labour is about.
Well, that just feels bad. All right, here we go.
The first black woman to do so. And I think those positive signals of people who have come to this country, who make an enormous contribution to this country, being visible and being seen in our politics is so important. If you look at our Dáil, with the exception maybe of Leo Varadkar, who came from an Indian background, there's probably nobody who's come from migrant background in Dáil Éireann. And I think it's so important that if you think of the proportion of our population who comes from migrant background, that's not represented in our politics. It's really, really important that those voices break through, that we hear.
So migrant voices are not the voices, unless it is legal migration by those who have assimilated. They shouldn't be represented in that way, especially based on a lack of contribution and not even that, extraction. Go ahead.
And this is Labour's main thing. Oh, look at us. We're so welcome to everyone. Look at us. We put the first black woman as mayor in Ireland. Except, I think the problem with the Labour Party is they didn't probably vet her that well. They just saw a local activist who was the right colour, who fit their narrative at the time. They didn't do, by the way, if they even did a couple of hours of research, they probably have realised maybe we should go with someone else. But don't get me wrong, he's on about Leo Varadkar. Yes, Leo's family, by the way, yes, were Indian, who came over here and worked their tail off when they got here.
This feels like virtue signaling. It feels like virtue.
Yeah, big time.
This is the first this or the first that.
That's what Labour's all about. Yeah.
That doesn't feel like it's to the advantage. It doesn't feel like it's to the advantage of the Irish people in any way.
No. It never will be. Not with Labour, anyway. I think all of us of a certain generation know that what we call Labour is champagne socialists, if anyone understands what I mean by that. That's all they are.
They're experiencing that they contribute to our politics as well as our society.
Yeah, no, spot on. And they are people who live in Ireland. They're Irish people.
Yeah.
So why shouldn't they be represented?
Yeah, and I suppose
they're not Irish people if they're not choosing to assimilate. That's okay. That's
I agree with you that just because you live in a country, say, if I stayed in America for a long period of time and I still have an Irish passport, am I American or am I Irish? I'm Irish. I'm not American. If I'm Nigerian with a Nigerian passport living in Ireland, I'm still a Nigerian living in Ireland. You're not Irish because you just happen to be living in the country.
So this is a case of because I've said a thing, that thing is true, and you have to believe the thing that is untrue because I have said it.
Yes, exactly. I couldn't put it any better myself.
That's getting multiculturalism forced down your throat, and the people saying, well, we don't accept that premise. You can't tell me a thing and then immediately say that it's true, and because I've said it's true, now you have to believe it. Doesn't function. Just epistemologically, it's failure. Like no syllogistic reasoning will allow that to become a truism. It just can't.
No.
I suppose you've started this segment, I suppose, talking about the liberties, and I don't mean to bring back to the liberties as being a potential, feeding ground for that type of politics to take hold. The liberties is an incredible place. There's so many strong community activists who have been doing incredible work on the ground there for decades long, and they'd be the first people in line to run any people trotting far-right nonsense out of their flat complexes and running them out of their communities. And I think we have to work with those activists on the ground to make sure that when they speak about lack of investment, neglect, regenerations,
So you should not be promoting activism per se.
No, it should be far-right activism, just be careful. But that's what he means. Anything that disagrees with the government's immigration policy is far-right. Anyone who points out what we can all see with our own two eyes is wrong. That's
right. But he's also talking about activists getting involved in local politics from the left side as well. Right.
Oh yeah.
So it should be
run them out of the. Remember what he said, to run them out of the flat complex.
It should be
just sprout that nonsense.
It should be policies. It should be appropriate procedures. It should be those who are properly vetted and those who are Irish citizens. Those are the ones who should be wielding that power. We shouldn't go to an activist either saying you're far right, you go, or you're far left, so you get platformed. That's not the way that's effective. If there are policies and there are politicians in place who are appropriately vetted, assimilated, it's fine. But if you tell me we need to take someone who, for whatever reason, has only ever extracted resources from the system and then give them political power, the power they wield, they will use to help others take more. That's the playbook. That's how that plays out every time. Every time.
We've seen it all over the G20. The problem is, the more these new immigrants, these people make up a percentage of the population, the more you'll see our parties playing into their nonsense.
Well, they have to. Otherwise, they don't get elected because there's so many people in the space that can vote now. They become voting blocks. And once those voting blocks get rolling, then you're going to have to pay heed. And if they don't have the Irish citizenry's needs, wants, and desires in their heart, as far as policies goes, then they're, again, going to vote to extract more resources. That's the way that goes.
Everything. I think every person knows this. I think the saddest part about all this nonsense going on in Ireland at the moment is, no matter what you say, your label is one or the other. I think the problem is we get a lot of our talking points, say from the likes of the United States or the UK or so on. So we get a lot of this left or right. I don't like putting labels left or right on things in Ireland. Not when it comes to common sense. If people are rightfully angry, and not all these people, by the way, are racists who are out protesting this across the country. They're not. These are normal, hardworking people who are just trying to say, I cannot afford to live in my own country. Why are these people getting everything and we're not? Or it's the fact that I can't get a hospital appointment because our systems are overwhelmed at the moment. These people are all being classified as far right when they're trying to just point out what all of us can see with our own two eyes.
Something as plainly obvious as I can't get an appointment with my doctor and I have a medical issue because the system is overburdened is not appropriate. It's certainly not appropriate.
No. And not when we're, on paper, one of the richest of the G20s. We're up there and apparently be one of the richest countries. We have a massive budget every year.
Well, the GDP is not indicative of your success necessarily. There's a lot of corporations there that represent
what I'm
that
saying
number.
Is, all you have to do is look at our national budget. There's plenty of money in the kitty, but the money in the kitty is being drained out because of all of this. Like, we're spending billions every year on iPass centres. Why? Why are we spending billions every year on iPass centres? If I went into any EU country with no passport, I'd be putting the first plane out. Why can't we just do that?
Well, the other problem you have is third-party safe countries are sending people your way. If they get to France or Germany or Turkey, or if they get somewhere that's considered a third-party safe country, they should stop there. And if they want to then attempt to emigrate to Ireland, then submit through appropriate channels what is required for immigration. But that's not happening.
Yeah. No. And I think it's getting worse and worse as time goes on because people are getting more and more frustrated with this narrative being shoved down our throats.
Yeah, I don't really think it's appropriate. I really don't think it's appropriate. All right, you got anything else for the good of the people, my friend?
We'll let this play on a small bit more. He brings up a couple of more points there.
Oh, okay. I thought that was the piece we wanted, but we will do a little bit more work here. Here we go.
When they speak about those issues, we have to be there to respond, because if we're not there listening, not there engaging, there's vacuums, and I think vacuums are dangerous.
Yeah, and obviously I know we started talking about the Liberties, but I think it's just that it's everywhere now, that there's not one area or one place in Ireland that's untouched by a lot of, you know, anti-migrant, anti-whatever, anti-this, like anti-not Irish, or anti just everything. It's very strange. It's hard to put into words.
They kind of have there's a basket of everything they're anti. They're anti-migrant, they're anti-trans, they're anti this, that, and the other. And I just think they're such a small but loud, group, And I think the big thing as well is, and I'm not kind of just blaming the social media companies, but a big issue is how much in this country we consume US and UK media and social media,
I was just thinking.
and some of the culture wars that are ongoing in those countries, they kind of get imported here.
The United States has a population of 330 million. The UK has a population of almost 70 million. Ireland's sitting at about 5.5, close to 6. So
Yes.
there's a lot more media produced by those two entities. So it is going to bleed over. And I think
Yes.
his characterization of all of that being super far left and super far right and anti-trans and anti-migrant, I'm not anti-migration. But if that migration policy does not take into consideration the constituency of that country, it is a failed policy on its face. And as you can see with extracted resources left, right, and center, corrupt NGOs, fraud, waste, and abuse, all the things going on, say, with California and their hospice care and the Leering centers in Minnesota and the voter fraud, like all these things are happening. And there's a reason that they're happening. It's because people are
Yes.
taking advantage of the system in bad ways. But the way we project it here, it is going to project itself onto Ireland's smaller community on the world stage.
The people, by the way, the people who are protesting in Ireland, a lot of their talking points, because I've seen a lot of these protests, a lot of their talking points are not UK or US specific, they're Irish specific points. If you talk to any of these guys in any of these protests, none of them are echoing what's said in the UK or echoing what's said in the US. They're echoing what's been said in Ireland for the most part.
Right, failed policies. It's failed. Your policies are failing.
Has the social media from the US and the UK influenced these people into action? Yes. It's probably given people a kick up the backside to go out there and do something about this.
But they're dealing with local issues. They're dealing with local issues. They're not
Yes.
saying because the US says this, I say that, or because the UK is projecting this, I'm saying this. Right. But again, multiculturalism is also the thing he is for, is also coming in from those directions as well.
Yes. And the reason why the UK has been dealing with this a hell of a lot longer than Ireland. And they've seen the results. The US has been dealing with this a hell of a lot longer than Ireland. And you've seen the results. We are at a tipping point in Ireland. Is if we don't deal with it now, it's not going to end well.
Well, your birth rate, your replacement, you're at 1.5 right now.
No, even if we were at one guy, I can't remember where I saw it. Even if we went, if us native Irish went to a birth rate of 5, which is very high, by the way. It's double what we have.
It's insanely high. Oh, it's 3 or 4
yeah,
times.
if we doubled, we're 2.5 now. But if we went up to 5.
Oh, no. You're not even at 2.5. You're at 1.5 with under 55,000.
No, actually, the last statistics is 2.5. I know that.
Okay.
Yeah, the US side used a previous census where I was watching Darragh Domino was using a more modern statistic. But anyway, even if we went from 2.5, which we are now, up to 5, we've doubled our birth rate right now in Ireland. We still wouldn't be at a replacement rate of the migrants that are coming in. The maths still wouldn't work out.
Right.
We still would be. We can't keep. Even, as I say, if we double our birth rate, we cannot keep up with migration. You have to remember, 1 year alone, we took on nearly 100,000 Ukrainians alone, just Ukrainians, outside of everyone else.
Well, and with 5.5 million people, that's a massive percentage of people coming in, yeah.
And bear in mind, that was a couple of years ago, so they've had kids since and so on, so it's probably a higher number at this stage. I know our government keeps saying, some of them went back. Yeah. I believe that when I kind of see that one. But now we have Nigerians, we have North Africans in general, we have everyone coming in all the time from all over the world. So even if we double our birth rate, we can never keep up with this inward migration. We're always going to be outnumbered if we don't nip it in the bud right now.
Bad results will come for sure.
And he comes up with a very good point there now in a moment when you play this.
And like I think the most ridiculous possible image I can remember is Irish nationalists, so-called Irish patriots, arm in arm with lads waving Union Jacks, calling for, the white supremacy basically, and you're thinking, you know, you're an Irish nationalist and you're arm in arm with Tommy Robinson and the fashion in the UK. So I just think people don't know their history, and I think there's the kind of conversation now that's happening, and you hear the Fine Gael line, which is, you know, we need to be firm but fair on migration and all this nonsense. You know, there's just this sense of inevitability that it happened in Italy, it happened in Spain, it happened in Germany, it happens in France. You know, these far right parties are on the rise and they're going to get into power, and we have to kind of lean in a little bit and be a bit anti-migrant to kind of keep them out. You know, Spain I mentioned there, like there was a real sense of inevitability that Vox, a far right neo-fascist party, was going to sort of be knocking on the door of government, and now we have Pedro Sanchez, a kind of socialist and like absolutely unapologetic socialist, who is standing there and he's saying people are welcome in this country. There's a huge history of North Africans migrating into Spain, obviously the geographical proximity and everything else, and they're regularizing a lot of people who are kind of hidden in the shadows, who are possibly, you know, what some people might call quote unquote illegal migrants, but they've been there for years, they contribute, they work.
They're not quote unquote, they're actually, and that goes back to Franco, and that goes back to after World War II and trying to get their population pop back up.
Yeah, I understand that Labour, by the way, are a socialist party. Let's call them what they are. Most people in Spain, by the way, are not a big fan of this present government whatsoever. Especially go down to the southern end of Spain, where they're dealing with the cold end of all this inward migration. At the end of the day, he's on about Irish nationalists standing with the Union Jack. I think they're missing the point is the fact that you have Irish citizens standing with UK citizens preaching the same message. People have to ask the reason why. Why? The simple reason is, the reason why they're doing it is we're both going through the same issues. I see that everyone giving out about Tony Robinson. Do I agree with everything that Tony Robinson says? For the yes and no. There's bits I do like, there's bits I don't like. But that's the nature of any politician. Let's call it spade a spade. Tony Robinson's very much about the rise of Islam in the UK. That Sharia law coming in parts of the UK and so on. That's Tony Robinson's stick. That we should straighten our borders. We should curb what's going on. You know, like I love it. He talks a lot of common sense in some ways. And I think the fact that so many Irish are resonating with it right now should be a message to our own government that our immigration policy has failed in a lot of ways, like the UK's policy has failed in a lot of ways.
I agree. Same thing here. All the G20s are experiencing this, and it's not great. So, all right. Now, do we have anything more for the people? We're going to shut this down, or we're going to keep going?
No, we're all good. I think what do you think of it yourself?
I think there's a lot of failed policies, and I don't think that his viewpoint is taking in necessary realities as far as what's happening with your resources and how they're being allocated. And I think you also have an issue. Remember, we were talking about how the dole, a lot of the people who work in the dole are landowners or they own property. So they're getting a massive advantage out of this as well. Because why rent a flat out for $1,100 a month when you can get euros, real money, a day? Why would you not exploit that system, especially if you're in charge? Just seems like there's some corruption at that level as well. And all this seems to be feeding into it.
Some corruption.
Hey, it's not double arrow. It's not double arrow. Okay. So, I mean, there's that.
Yeah.
All right. For Patrick McCallum, I am Alex Johansson. Like, ring the bell, subscribe, and help us beat the algorithm. We're the A&P Gents, and we are out.